Men, women, and children being held in detention facilities, hastily put on planes and transferred them to other countries where they have no connections, do not speak the language, and are unable to contact family or counsel. This case involves a similar scenario. None of this happens unless these people have illegally invaded our nation. You want to avoid an ICE detention facility? You don't want to be put on a plane? You don't want to be transferred to a country where you have no connections and don't speak the language? Stay home. Don't invade my nation unlawfully. Let's get to the rage meltdown, shall we? Again, the key things to keep in mind here is none of these illegal migrant third world invaders ever had a scintilla of authority to be in the U.S. They entered illegally. They stayed illegally. They have a final order of deportation. They've received all their due process. But every claim that they make is taken at face value by Jamaican-born dual citizenship Judge Chutkan, and every representation made by Trump is presumed to be a lie. In 1988, the United States signed the Convention Against Torture. For over 3 decades, through 5 presidential administrations, this country has adhered to its obligation to treat refugees humanely and to comply with the constitutional requirement of due process. None of these illegal migrant third world invaders in this case have been found to qualify for refugee status. They're just illegal migrants. So that's a lie in the context of this case. The requirements of due process, which is afforded to all persons present in the country regardless of their citizenship status. Yes, but due process is not some homogenous standard. It only means the process to which you are due, and different people are due different levels of due process. Even American citizens, the due process you're entitled to if you're charged with a felony crime, a lawyer if you can't pay for one, a trial by jury, you're not entitled to any of that. In a legal proceeding for a traffic ticket, you're in traffic court, you don't get that level of due process. You get some due process, but nothing like you would get for a felony. And if you're an illegal migrant third world invader of our nation, you get some due process. You get the immigration courts, but you don't even get access to the federal courts, the federal district courts. So they lie. This is another way they lie. They use due process and they pretend. They never define what it is and they never contextualize it. Whatever it's supposed to mean, and they never tell you, these people didn't get it because Trump bad. All of these guys got all the due process to which they were entitled. In recent months, Jamaican-born dual citizenship Judge Chutkan writes, the government has embarked on a series of deportations which signal a drastic change of course. Yeah, we're getting rid. We got to get rid of 90 million illegal migrant third world invaders. That's a change of course. Biden was letting them in, third world migrants, by the tens of millions, and we're getting rid of them. Admitted, this is a change in course. In several cases, authorities have rounded up, often at night, and with little or no notice, men, women, and children being held in detention facilities, hastily put on planes and transferred them to other countries where they have no connections, do not speak the language, and are unable to contact family or counsel. This case involves a similar scenario. None of this happens unless these people have illegally invaded our nation. You want to avoid an ICE detention facility? You don't want to be put on a plane? You don't want to be transferred to a country where you have no connections and don't speak the language? Stay home. Don't invade my nation unlawfully. The plaintiffs here, the third world illegal migrants, are 5 citizens of Nigeria and Gambia who were granted fear-based immigration relief, either withholding of removal or deferral under CAT, the Convention Against Torture. This means that after an extensive immigration process, that might also be called, guess what, folks? Do you know? Can I hear it? Due process. After extensive due process, a U.S. immigration judge found that the illegal third world migrants had shown they were more likely than not to face persecution, torture, or death if they were returned to their home countries. One of these illegal third world migrants, D.A., who is also married to a U.S. citizen, good work, ladies, fled his country after being tortured by the military and police officers who told him if they ever saw him again, they would kill him. That sucks. It's not my problem, though. It sounds like a you problem. The immigration court found that he, like the other plaintiffs, were entitled to protection by the United States. This is another lie. She's trying to say protection by the United States as if that means legal presence. Never happened. No immigration court ever said this guy can legally stay in the U.S. Never happened. Protection against being sent back to his home nation? Sure. But you still can't stay here. Another lie, a lie by deception. Plaintiffs, the third world illegal migrants here who were being held at an ICE facility, alleged that in the middle of the night, she doesn't like the night. You think it makes a difference if you're deported in the nighttime or the daytime legally? In the middle of the night, they were awakened from their beds. Oh, shackled. Yeah, they're being deported. You're going to be shackled. Put on a U.S. military cargo plane. This is not Lufthansa. Without being allowed to notify family or legal counsel. They're allowed to notify family and legal counsel. They can notify them from Ghana, and in at least one case without identification documents. Well, every identification document they have says they're a foreign national unlawfully in the U.S. So I'm not sure that's helpful to them. They claim there's no corroborating evidence for this, that they were placed in straitjackets for up to 16 hours. One alleges, no corroborating evidence, that he now has difficulty walking because his straitjacket was secured so tightly. You know how you avoid this? Stay in Gambia. Don't invade my nation. The third world migrants were ultimately informed by U.S. officers that they were being taken to Ghana. They're not Ghanaian citizens, have no connection to Ghana, did not designate Ghana as a potential country for removal during their immigration proceedings. Well, they don't get to pick. They don't get to pick where they go. That's never an option. An order of withholding, when it's kindly granted by U.S. immigration authorities, lets you pick a place you're not going to be sent to. You don't get to pick where you're going to be sent to. By default, we'll send you to your home of nationality. But if you choose not to go there, you're subject to being sent by the U.S. to any foreign nation that will take you. If that sounds grim to you, and it would sound grim to me, do not invade my nation. Easy peasy. They were taken to Dima Camp, a remote open-air detention facility surrounded by armed guards. Okay, that's in Ghana. Take this up with Ghana. You don't like it? You don't like the facilities? That's a Ghanaian issue. You don't get to stay at the Four Seasons. These third world illegal migrant invaders filed a complaint for a temporary restraining order against the government, claiming violations of the Administrative Procedures Act, due process, withholding of removal, Convention Against Torture, and the Freedom of Information Act. Okay. They seek immediate injunctive relief, claiming that they now face imminent removal from Ghana to their countries of origin, where they obviously desperately don't want to go. At a hearing on September 12th, which was last Friday, defendants agreed that even though plaintiffs have a final order of removal, they cannot be returned to their home countries. Yes, we kindly granted an order of withholding. We said we will not send you to your home countries. That still leaves us with the option to send them to any other country that will take them. Trump claims, however, remember, everything Trump says is to be disbelieved. Trump claims they were assured by Ghana that it would not send these third world illegal migrants to countries where they were likely to be tortured. Despite this assurance, one was immediately sent back to his home country and is currently in hiding. Sounds like success to me. By the way, Ghana can say we're not going to send them where they're going to be tortured, but they're not bound by America's assessment of where they're likely to be tortured. An American immigration judge might have said, all right, I buy your story that if I send you back to Nigeria, you'll be tortured there. So I'm going to give you an order of withholding. We will not send you back to Nigeria because of this risk of torture. Instead, we're going to send you to Ghana. Ghana has promised us that they will not send you to a country where you will be tortured. But when you get to Ghana, Ghana gets to make its own assessment. You have to explain to a Ghanaian immigration judge, convince him you're likely to be tortured in Nigeria, and he may not believe you. So he concludes that Nigeria, your home nation, is a place where you're not likely to be tortured. And he orders you deported there accordingly. The Ghanaian government is not bound by the conclusions of a U.S. immigration court judge. They are an independent nation. Although Trump agrees that it appears Ghana is violating the assurances it provided to the United States, no, that's not what the government said. That's not what Trump said. Trump, look, listen to what actually happened. Let's see. The court, yesterday we had a hearing. You agreed with me. The United States was aware they had an order of removal, but could not be returned to their home country. Do you agree with that? Yes, they had an order of withholding from their home nation. And you assured me that Ghana was reached, U.S. and Ghana reached a high-level diplomatic discussion to take them, and Ghana would comply with the Convention Against Torture. Is that correct? Yes. But again, Ghana is not bound by the conclusions of a U.S. immigration judge. They get to make their own findings of fact. The U.S. government does not have the power to tell Ghana what to do. Also, this is not what the government said up here, that Ghana is violating its assurances. What Trump's administration said was, if you believe these migrants, then Ghana's violating what they promised us. If you believe them. Trump doesn't believe them, but this judge chooses to believe them even without corroborating evidence. There's no corroborating evidence of torture. The worst even this judge can say is that one of these guys is in his home nation in hiding. The guilty flee even when no one pursueth. Trump's actions in this case appear to be, in other words, I'm going to come to the conclusion because I don't like Trump, appear to be in disregard of or despite its obligations to provide individuals present in the U.S. with due process. Note, these guys got all the due process to which they were entitled, and to treat even those who are subject to removal humanely. I mean, we gave them a free flight to West Africa, where they come from. These actions also appear to be, no findings of fact here, part of a pattern and widespread effort to evade the government's legal obligations by doing indirectly what it cannot do directly. Okay, well, maybe they're allowed to do that. In any case, this government's not doing anything indirectly. If Ghana is sending these people back to their nations of citizenship, that's Ghana doing that. These are not speculative concerns. Actually, they are largely speculative concerns. And this case is not an outliner. It's not the first case in which plaintiffs, illegal migrant third world invaders, allege the government has deported. Again, they allege, it's presumed by this court to be true if an illegal migrant third world invaders allege the government has deported or attempted to deport them with no notice or opportunity to contact family or counsel. Well, you don't have a right to contact family or counsel. Why would you have a right to, what's your family going to do for you in a deportation hearing? In some cases, individuals were deported to their home countries despite court orders barring removal. Again, that was Abrego Garcia. Once he became a designated terrorist, his order of removal, his order of withholding, was invalid as a function of law. Terrorists are not entitled to an order of withholding. They don't get the benefit of a gift from the U.S. not to be sent someplace. In others, individuals, many of them children, were hastily rounded up and put on planes without valid removal orders because they were not being deported. These children were not being deported. They were being returned to their families in Central and South America. It wasn't an immigration proceeding. If I get on a plane and fly to Cancun, am I being deported from the U.S.? There was no removal order because there was no immigration process because it was not an immigration issue. They were being returned to their families and with no notice or opportunity to challenge their removals. They were not immigration removals. They were familial returns. And then in recent months, plaintiffs have filed the following cases. And here we're supposed to believe that if someone has filed a case against Trump, obviously they're right. The mere filing of the case demonstrates that they're correct and Trump is wrong, which obviously is nonsense. AARP versus Trump. Detainees were served notices under the Alien Enemies Act, were told they would be removed within 24 hours. The Supreme Court was forced to intervene in the middle of the night. Nobody forced them. No one forces the Supreme Court to do anything. The Supreme Court chose to intervene and said they have to be given more than 24 hours notice. That's all that happened here. Before the Supreme Court intervened, there was no guideline of what the mandatory minimum notice was. So nothing wrong was happening with 24 hours notice. No one had ever said before the Supreme Court intervened that that wasn't allowed. So this is not evidence of any misconduct. LGML versus NOME. Again, acronyms because they don't want us to know what shitbags these illegal migrant third world invaders are. The government took 76 Guatemalan children from refugee shelters late at night, put them on a plane bound for Guatemala. This is their return of these children to their families. And a court in the district circuit, a colleague of Jamaican-born dual citizenship, Chutkan, it was Sparkle Sunagananan, whatever her name is, that judge, Sparkle, issued a temporary restraining order preventing the children from being returned to their families. She actually had the children deported from the plane, put back in a foreign nation shelter when they could have been in the beds of their family that night. These federal judges are demons. Kettlewell v. Nome, again, more children being returned home without removal orders. Yes, there was no removal orders because these were not deportations. These were returns. Nome v. Abrego Garcia. We already talked about the nonsense that was Abrego Garcia. Melgar Salmaran v. Bondi. Approximately 30 minutes after the Second Circuit granted him a stay of removal, the government placed him on a plane, deported him to El Salvador. I don't know what the facts of this case are, but every other case being cited here is a lie. So I presume that's true here too. Department of Homeland Security versus DVD. Again, more hiding the identity of the shitbag illegal migrant third world invaders. A gay Guatemalan man stated he feared he would be tortured on account of his sexuality if deported to either Guatemala or Mexico. And she's quoting Sotomayor in dissent. She's quoting the losing side of this decision because she knows the general public won't get that. An immigration judge granted a withholding of removal to Guatemala, but not Mexico. So that we said, we're not going to send you to Guatemala. Days later, the government deported the man to Mexico, which is allowed. Soon after that, Mexico deported him to Guatemala. Well, he should have been nicer to Mexico. This is Mexico's call to make once he's in Mexico. Here, Trump transported the illegal migrant third world invaders to Ghana with no notice or opportunity to challenge that removal. Again, they'd gotten all the due process and immigration court to which they were entitled. They were well aware they can get an order of withholding from their nation of nationality if they wished, and they did. They were then subject to being deported to any country America chose. 193 other countries on the face of the earth were potential destinations for their deportation. They knew that under what appears to be a hasty and unwritten agreement with Ghana. Well, you're just a judge, so you don't get to decide what's hasty and unwritten in terms of foreign policy negotiations. You unelected, black-robed, tyrannical, inferior district trial court judge hack with Ghana, which has indicated its intention to return plaintiffs to their home countries, where Trump agrees they will almost certainly be persecuted. Yeah, but that's a them problem. We're not sending them there. Ghana is sending them there. Take it up with Ghana. These illegal migrant third world invaders can sue in Ghana, get their due process in Ghana, if West Africa is so awesome. Despite the danger the third world migrants who invaded our nation now face as a result of Trump's actions, the court cannot give the plaintiffs the relief they seek, the TRO, because the plaintiffs have not bent their burden to establish this court has jurisdiction. As we already saw, it doesn't. At the outset, the court must assure itself it has jurisdiction before it reaches the merits of the claims. On this record, it cannot do so, so we deny the motion for the temporary restraining order. And we have 5 more pages of this rage meltdown. I think this is all duplicitous of what we've already read. Their personal woes are added. Somebody was held at an airport in Ghana for 5 days. The other ones, all acronyms, so we don't know what shitbags they are. Say they face the same fate, the straitjacket story. I fear for my life. If I go back to Nigeria, I'll be tortured. 0 corroborating evidence of any of this. United States and Ghana entered into an unwritten agreement. Ghana agreed to assist the U.S. with removal of non-citizens. I'm sure we paid them money, by the way, for this. A counsel for Trump represented the State Department has received diplomatic assurances from Ghana that plaintiffs would not be tortured or taken to a place where they would be tortured. Well, they're not being tortured in Ghana. Let's see. Despite this assurance, Ghana promptly returned one plaintiff to his home country. Well, Ghana never said they would not be sent to their home country. Ghana said they would not be sent to another country where they would be tortured. But if Ghana concludes that their claims of being tortured in their home country are not credible, well, then when Ghana sends them to their home country, Ghana is not sending them to a place where they would be tortured. Judge Chutkan to Trump. Does Ghana appear to be violating the assurances it gave the U.S. government? Trump's lawyer. Assuming the plaintiffs are telling the truth, based on the plaintiffs' allegations, that seems to be the correct. That's not the same thing as saying, I agree that's true. That's saying if you believe these lying shitbag third world migrant invaders of America are telling the truth, then yeah. But we don't agree they are telling the truth. September 12th, last Friday, the third world migrant invaders won a TRO, enjoined defendants from removing. She keeps saying removing them from their countries of origin. I'm sure what she means is they were asking not to be sent to their countries of origin. That's the only thing that makes sense. Order Trump to facilitate their return to the U.S. Compel Ghana to give them up. In the alternative, they asked the court to order the defendants to notify the Ghanaian government. Notify the government. That means order the government. Order the Ghanaian government, not an independent sovereign state, not to remove plaintiffs to their countries of origin or any other country where they fear prosecution and torture. The U.S. can't order Ghana to do anything, especially not without engaging in foreign relations, which is something the court cannot order. Let's see. At a hearing the same day, last Friday, the parties agreed to a briefing schedule, a series of meetings. 3 hours later, lawyers for the third world migrants told the court they'd received information that they would be imminently removed to their home countries. Again, there's no actual evidence of any of this. As early as the next day, Saturday, September 13th, they filed a second emergency interim relief motion for TRO, and this document is the answer to all of that. And then we get, finally, on page 11, after all that rage fest meltdown, all that sniping remarks of Trump, we get to the actual legal analysis that we've already covered. This is the quality of jurisprudence we get when we appoint female Jamaican nationals to our federal bench. Why? Do we not have enough? Is there a shortage of natural-born American citizens for the federal bench that we have to import people from Jamaica to give lifetime appointments to the U.S. federal bench, even as they're maintaining dual citizenships with their home country, not even fully committed to being American citizens? I don't know. Doesn't feel like the right thing to me.